Gang, is Hexy. So we are into the noon turn on the first day of Gettysburg 77 Advanced. And I think this video is going to be more about my thoughts on this. And quite honestly, not sure if I'm going to go any farther with this. Okay, so I'm going to, as I've said, I'm going to answer the first question: is the game playable? Yes, the game's playable. I don't think that's a problem. I said it before. There's some holes in the rules that as a veteran gamer, any veteran gamer out there, you can probably fill the gaps and figure out where things might have gone. But there's a few things that just aren't. I think the first thing that I'm going to address is. Okay, the mechanics of the game they're unlike anything else that I can think of. I mean, the stretching of the brigades kind of reminds me of CWBS, and how actually I think they had shaded counters in CWBS. It would make that game that much better. The fact that your line can bend, it can arc backwards, it can arc to the front, it can have a refused flank, and there's no charge to do that. The lines just sort of mold that way as they go. That's pretty cool. The amount of strength points it can fire through a hex front or through a hex side, depending on what kind of battle line you're in, I think that's pretty cool. I think they've done a great job with that. The disorganization. I love the disorganization mechanic in this game. However, I think I'm struggling with how big that can grow on a brigade at such a fast rate. Granted, I wasn't there, and I would imagine that some of the mess that was created by musket fire and artillery fire could pretty much shatter a unit pretty quick. And I know there's cases where it did. But they have a recovery system of that disorganization. When a unit hits that disorganization level of 4 or above, they can no longer be named to attack, which means they can't advance through an enemy's range of influence and close with them. And you have to close with them in order to do fire combat if you're dismounted cavalry or your infantry in battle line. And if you can't close to that adjacent, then there's no fire combat going on. There is no ranged volley fire from infantry or dismounted cavalry in this game. You have to be adjacent to shoot. I don't have the distances of the hexes off the top of my head, but if this is Seminary Ridge, and this is Cemetery Ridge here, and the Pickett's Charge area, and that's a mile across, you figure... what's a mile? 5,620 feet, whatever that is. That means you're talking almost 1,000-foot hexes. Maybe a little more. So that explains why you need to be in there adjacent to shoot. And what I found with over here on Seminary Ridge, when the first division of the First Corps arrived, they were like instantly shattered as far as we don't say shattered, but they went above 4 in their disorganization level in 20 to 40 minutes. They never got I think Cutler's brigade got the chance to advance, and then Pettigrew's brigade put it on them and drove their disorganization level up above the attack. And then when the turn flipped and the Confederates advanced on them and got into fire combat and then close assault, well, that put Cutler into retreat mode. And Meredith was already in retreat mode, so they have to back out and clear the range of influence of any enemy unit before they can stop their retreat movement. Kind of a cool concept, and I could see how, like I said, I don't know of another game like that. I know when brigades lose their combat effectiveness, obviously you want to get them out of there. They're not gonna maneuver as well. They're not gonna perform as well. But it just seemed like this one here, it just happens too fast. It can happen too fast. All right, that could probably be adjusted. And then let me show you a card here. So this is, let me pull Buford out here. So Buford is on his card. Both Gamble and Devon, they're 69. Well, they have been in a rest formation over here on this right flank. Fortunately, nobody's come after him, but one of Heath's brigades has recovered and starting to move. So these guys can recover 10 disorganization points a turn while in rest. Well, they were at 129. So they've been sitting there while resting, and they're still at 6. They've got to come down below 4 before they can be named to attack. Now, just because a unit can't be named to attack doesn't mean it can't maneuver and it can't do combat if it is advanced on, all right, if it is attacked. They can't serve any purpose in an offensive manner once their disorganization level gets to 4 or goes higher. So, as you can see, this historically is not where the Confederacy was and the Union lines were at noon. All right. Now, what you're seeing here is this entire line, all the way to here, is First Corps. There's no secondary units in a reserve status behind that. All right. Here's the first elements of the 11th Corps. Howard came on about 40 minutes ago, or maybe an hour ago. And now these guys here, they came on like I think an hour ago. And the rest of the 11th Corps, you got Barlow and his boys coming up the Emmitsburg Road. And then the remaining divisions coming up down the Tawnytown Road down here. Well, they're not going out here to the north side of Gettysburg like they did on day one, because the cavalry and the 1st Division of the 1st Corps, which, by the way, the 2nd Division, who was sitting along in here, on the first day, they got up here on the seminary, almost to Oak Hill, and they were defending in this area up here. There was no chance of them getting there. Heath, on his own, drove the cavalry and drove the 1st Corps they drove the cavalry off of McPherson's Ridge, then they drove the cavalry and the 1st Corps before they could even get started on Seminary Ridge to the fight. Literally put them into a retreat mode before they even got into position. Could that have happened? I mean, yeah, I'm sure it could have, had Heath been pressing with 4 brigades right from the start. Well, Heath, all 4 of his brigades are back to attack capability. Pettigrew is fixing to go because he just took some fire right in his face right there, but he's getting ready to start his close assault. What's going to happen? I don't know. Is he going to put enough damage on Baxter and Paul and maybe Meredith over here or Cutler over here on the left side of First Wadsworth's line, chasing them off Cemetery Hill, and then they're going to be up on Cemetery Hill, and then 11th Corps, one of their divisions is going to get caught if that happens. And then the rest of the 11th Corps, they're going to be fighting up the Tawnytown Road and maybe as far over here as Baltimore Pike to try to gain that back. I don't see that happen because here's Dorsey Pender. He's on, all right? Artillery coming on, and guess what? In 40 minutes, Rhodes coming on. In an hour, a little more than an hour, Early's coming on. Rhodes is coming on up here shortly, and Early's going to be following. And the Union Army is just not going to have enough to deal with all of that manpower. Okay, so let's go back to history. Could the Army of Northern Virginia have taken Cemetery Hill on the first day and changed the course of Gettysburg from the 3-day fight that it became into one and done? Yeah, I honestly believe it could have. You know, things would have had to maybe go a different way. Decisions would have had to been made that were different than maybe the way they were. Battlefield confusion will help you make the right or wrong decision. The things you don't know about the enemy could cause you to hesitate and not do. And I think we had that story with Ewell talking about thinking there were enemy forces over here below the Heidlersburg Road on Hanover Road here, thinking there were some Union troops out here, and that's why he was worried about his flank and didn't, one of the stories I've heard why he didn't push. But the Confederates pretty much took Gettysburg, so to speak, without even a fight. The Union had to just fall right back through it. So while I think this could have happened, I'm sure the potential was there. Right now, both the Union First Division brigades, First Division First Corps brigades, they're still in what I call it a shattered status. Their attack level, they cannot attack. All right, and it's probably not going to take long for Doubleday and Robinson's divisions to end up with the same thing, with Pender and Heath both attacking, and Heath's got his other 3 brigades have completely recovered. They're weakened, but they're not. Which, by the way, the strength point, the way you lose strength points in the game, I do like that system by the use of casualty points, and so many casualty points, then you lose a strength point. I do like that. But his other 3 brigades have recovered now, and they're getting ready to press. Okay, and while you think it's just 3 brigades, well, here's 11th Corps. Well, like I said, you got Rhodes and you got Early are fixing to show up on this battlefield, and that number is going to make this, I think, untenable for the Union. And the 11th Corps units that are coming in down here, they're not going to be able to get to where they were in the original fight. All right. Now let's talk about the big thorn here that's bugging me. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely doing it wrong. Artillery firepower, I think, in this game stinks. I don't mind the numbers it provides when you got cannons shooting against cannons or at cannons. I don't mind that. I don't necessarily agree with when it's shooting at infantry, okay? And especially at point blank range, because the casualty point number is not very potent. As you can see on this bottom chart, let's take a look at that first table there. You got rifled guns. Let's say you've got 4 rifled guns shooting at 1 hex. They're only causing 3 casualty points. All right? And I got to think that canister, that's got to be canister range for these guns, has got to cause more potential casualty points than that. All right? And then, like I say, you've got the different types of guns. You've got rifled, you've got Napoleon, you've got howitzer type cannons in this game. And I don't know. Those numbers to me just don't seem right. Okay? So with that in mind, it's almost, the artillery to me is kind of 50% useless in its effectiveness. Or its effectiveness is like 50% useless, and that's when it's engaging infantry. Or, that's in battle line formation. I don't know. At distance, I get it, but in close quarters like this, firing canister, and it even says in there, artillery cannot fire at adjacent units. I'm stunned with that one. Maybe I'm missing something completely on that one, but I just don't like the rules. I also am not totally sold, excuse me, on the order of arrival with some of the units. I'm good with the 11th Corps. I'm not so sure about the times on this. Maybe there's I know there's a 5-page errata, but I've never dug too deep into that, and I don't know. I don't remember seeing so much about the reinforcements in there. And I know there's groups out there where they look at this game really hard, and maybe they're making some adjustments. Maybe there's another rule set out there I need to look for that helps this. We'll say Ulan's blow up of the map, the original game map, and now he's got his new one that he's redone that can be used for this. I think that is a great plus, because I couldn't imagine trying to get all this. And this is, like I said, this is just 2 Confederate divisions. Getting all that on the standard game map, the fold-out boards, because I think that would have been a little bit too snug. This seems to work very well. My needle nose or my tweezers are not bogging down and getting all knocking counters all over the place and everything. So that's a plus. All right. Another nice feature they have in this is experience level. If you look at a unit on the back, it has a color. Their strength number has a color. So who's blue? All right, blue means he's a veteran unit. You have 4 classes of experience. You have veteran, seasoned, experienced, and then green. I haven't seen any green ones yet. But that effectiveness plays a big role when they're shooting, when they're doing close assault, or when they're doing fire combat. And let me tell you something. When these battle lines shoot, you're not doing a normal, hey, this unit's shooting at that unit. No, you're doing brigade fire is what you're doing against another brigade. I'm not going to get into the details, because there's cases where an enemy brigade overlaps 2 friendly brigades, and the fire's a little bit different. But for the most part, you get a whole brigade firing at a whole brigade. So, you have a brigade that has 22 strength points in it, and he happens to be a seasoned unit uh, with 0 to 1 experience, or I'm sorry, 0 to 1 disorganization. He's going to have a massive, massive, let's see if I can even show you on the chart here, um, experience level to shoot on this chart up in the corner right here. And the experience levels are here on the left. So if you're on that 10 to 12 and you're firing 22 units, well, it only goes out to 11. So you're going to roll on that 11 column twice. And boy, if you roll 2 6s, you just cost 26 casualty points. Well, 26 casualty points will convert into so much disorganization, which is actually quite large. And for every 10 disorganization points, you gain 1 level of disorganization. And like I say, you only got to go to 4 before you can't attack anymore. And you need to, if you're fortunate enough that you can pull off the line and rest like Heath's brigades were able to do, then that's fine. But the Union, the Army of the Potomac, they are not necessarily able to do it because they didn't have any units to fill in the holes while they pulled brigades off to get rested. So, and in a sense, if you think about the first day of Gettysburg, maybe this is a good application to represent how that first day's fighting went. I just think that this is too much, that we're already coming up on Cemetery Hill here, and it's only 12 o'clock on the first day. Do I think that could have happened? I'm going to say it again. Yeah, I think the potential was there, it just didn't. Maybe it was whoever was in command of that caused that to not happen. But so this is a game that, well, I definitely don't hate it. I love the map. I love the mechanics, the idea of the mechanics that were created to play this game. I think there's a wonderful system there, and it just needs to have some holes plugged to clean up some things. And maybe go back through that arrival chart to see the order of appearance on stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that chart's actually right, and I don't have a clue. But, years and years and years of reading about Gettysburg and listening to documentaries and reading books here and there about it, some of the stuff just didn't make sense to me. The places where they arrive, for the most part, are fine. But, and I want to love this game at the same time. I really do. Because, like I say, look at that map. Map's gorgeous. And I like to say the mechanics here, I think this is a very, very unique system. But I think this is probably going to come off the table now because this would take quite a while to grind this out. This might be something for me at a later date. If you're out there and you're plugging away with this, I'd love to hear your input. I'd like to see if anybody's playing it where you saw something that just seemed to not work or you were struggling with it and what you did to correct that, or what answer you found to make that work a little better, or if you had to home rule something. I've already seen a couple mentions from people about things that they modified. Like, I think one of the things I modified was I did not agree with that, strategic movement if you're like road marching in column on a road, to use what it says in the intermediate rules. Well, like I said, if I'd have used that with the Confederates going first, Heath would have been up on McPherson's Ridge before any cavalry got there to slow him down. All right. So I didn't think that was an option. So I reduced that from, what was it, ×4 per AP to ×2. And that allowed Heath, 20. Plus, come on. If you had a unit in column that could move, say their activity was 6 and they're moving 4 on a road, that's 24 hexes they're moving in column on a road march. Come on, from there all the way to here in 20 minutes, in July, and I think it was 100-degree heat all the time there. I'm not seeing that happen. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm no super soldier or nothing when I was in, but I had Humvees and helicopters and tracks, so I could probably get that far. But I don't know. I thought that was a stretch, so I reduced it to 2, double the movement, and I thought, that seems to work. Maybe it could have been ×3. But it seemed to work. I just think that the full-blown attack with Heath, which Heath could only get 3 brigades himself into battle line, and the other one had to roll for random luck whether it was going to do it or not. And then when you get AP Hill and now Pender's on, it took Pender a little while to get here, but now he's into the attack, and I think these numbers are going to be huge. And granted, this 11th Corps division, he might be able to hit and turn that, but I don't know. This just seems out of position for me. Could just be me. I was playing super aggressive as the Confederates on this one, and if you get a Union formation at the wrong location, and he's not quite deployed, which I'm struggling with here. Units coming out of column with Meredith along this road, and then he got to burn all 6 APs to get into battle line. If he burns any more than that, he's going to start suffering disorganization, which I did allow him to take. But I had battle line stretching this way instead of this way. So getting those guys into a battle line coming out of column, you probably got to do it way before that. But if I'd have done that, if I hadn't moved them up here as far as I could, Buford just would have been completely crushed with nothing there to slow the Confederates down. And it could have been even worse than it was for First Corps. So, all right, so yeah, this one will stay in my inventory of games. One day, maybe when I'm tired, I'll come back to this thing, or one day maybe I'll just get to scratching my head and say, oh, damn it, I'm not going to let this game beat me. Let's get it out again. And I'm going to go ahead and make the final statement here. It is a playable game, and I know Gilbert Collins, he did something about this a long time ago. I know that Gilbert was referencing the density of counters on that little map, and I tell you, I got to agree with him 100%. There's no possible way that was going to be done. And there's a lot of bookkeeping in this. Artillery shooting at artillery. The artillery doesn't take strength losses. They take ammunition losses if you shoot a set of guns at an enemy set of guns, you might get so many hits, and that causes ammunition loss to the enemy guns. And then they lose once their ammunition table's maxed out, which is like 10 rounds, they can't resupply, I think it's till nighttime. And so maybe that's going to simulate, artillery being knocked out, guns being knocked out by causing that artillery to not be able to fire again for like the remainder of the day till they can get resupplied. Which is kind of odd because you have a decent ammunition reserve, especially for the Union, to refill them. Maybe that rule needs to be plugged. I was not using any optional rules in this game, so one of the things that wasn't being used was breastworks, which could probably make a world of difference in this, because I know darn well, 11th and 1st Corps, when they did get back here on Cemetery Hill and along over to Culps, they were digging in. All right, we know that happened for sure. A little later in the day, but yeah, I just think that the overwhelming of Heath by himself as one division against 2 cavalry brigades and 2 1st Corps divisions that were very good divisions, just disabling them as fast as they did. I don't know. It's almost as if there was no fight put up by the Union. So like I say, unless I'm missing something, or if anybody else had to deal with that, or has found a solution to that, or like I said, maybe I'm missing something, let me know. Somebody help me out with this thing here, because like I say, this one's not going to go away. It's going to come down now. I need to refresh the brain with some other Civil War stuff, and come back around to this one day in the future, I hope. All right, this is Hexy. We'll talk to y'all soon.